Kalki's ashram. I said, which Kalki? He said, Kalki avatar. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, there's some man who's claiming himself to be Kalki avatar. And this is his ashram. And he's just back from jail. I said, okay, that's good. So I said, what happened? I said, he used to dupe a lot of people, charge them different mantra, money for mantras. If you want to get an express mantra very quick, super quick, then you have to pay so much. And if you want to be in the waiting list, then you can pay a little less, it's okay. So, and he had a huge following. There were thousands and thousands upon followers who were actually coming to him, flocking to him, because the common man is innocent, he's ignorant. He does not understand spiritual knowledge. So when someone demonstrates some mystic powers, then he develops a large following. So one of our sannyasis had gone to Kumbh Mela in Allahabad some years ago, the last time that there was such a Kumbh Mela. This time it was in Haridwar. So this Kalki avatar had come there. And he had his tent and he had many people coming to him. So this devotee of sannyasi went up to him and he spoke to him, he got an audience. And he said, you're claiming yourself to be Kalki avatar. Is your father's name Vishnu Yasha? Because that's what the Bhagavatam says. He said, no. Were you born in Shambhala Gram? Because that's what the Bhagavatam says. He says, no. Then how do you claim yourself to be Kalki? So anyway, the discussion went on like that. And then he asked him that, look, the Bhagavatam says that Kalki avatar will appear at the end of the age of Kali. And we are only 5,000 years into Kali Yuga now. There's another 400,000 years at least. So how is it that you've come so early? So he replied, he said, I could not tolerate the suffering of the people of this world. So I came early. So this is the nature of the false incarnations of this age. People are simply cheating people and claiming themselves to be God. But as Prabhupada says, the moment they have a toothache, they run to a dentist. So in India especially, these things are very common. And the common man is unfortunately befooled many, many times. So it behooves one who has accepted the human body to understand this spiritual knowledge and know for certain who God is and who God is not. The Supreme Lord has certain characteristics. If someone is to be accepted as a Supreme Lord, number one, he must be predicted in the scriptures in advance. Number two, he must exhibit his universal form as Krishna did on the battlefield of Kurukshetra to Arjuna. Number three, he must have certain marks on the soles of his feet and on the palms of his hand and on his body in general. Like we all know, Krishna's lotus feet have certain symbols, right? Like we have the Vajra or the lightning thunderbolt, or you have the lotus flower or the fish and so on. Srimati Radharani has certain marks on her lotus feet and on lotus hands. Mahaprabhu has, Nityananda Prabhu has. So these special marks should be there. And third and lastly, fourthly, they should perform some very, very extraordinary activities which are impossible for people to follow. So one time when Srila Prabhupada, in the early days of ISKCON, was I think with 26 Second Avenue, we were sitting there and giving a lecture. One intoxicated man was also part of the audience. And when Prabhupada was talking about God, he stood up and said, I am God. He said, I am God. And Prabhupada said, oh really? Then can you please show your universal form? So he stood up and raised both his hands like this and stood on his toes and said, here's my universal form. So Prabhupada said, no, we can't accept this kind of universal form. The universal form has to be like the kind that Krishna exhibited in the battlefield of Kurukshetra to Arjuna. It's like the hellish planets. All the time. When I was in New York some years ago, I couldn't sleep in the night because all night long there was all these things going on. Either it was the ambulance, or it was the police, or it was the fire engine, or it was something. All night long this was going on. I just couldn't sleep. So, one doesn't need to. Some people say, what is the proof that hell exists? Come to New York, come to Soho. But then within this hell, there is also the transcendental world. There is a Radha Langaneshwar temple. And come here and have a vision of the spiritual world. So in any case, so the Supreme Lord cannot be imitated like this. It's only people who are ignorant who try to imitate him, and others also who are ignorant accept these imitators as the Supreme Lord. So Krishna's body is forever, is always transcendental. And in all circumstances, in all situations, he remains the Supreme Lord. 30 is class end, so I'll stop here early today for questions. Yesterday we didn't have enough time for questions. So I'll stop here with these few words about the nature of Krishna's Godhood, which is eternal. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Any questions? Yes.